Excellent. Hi. So first of all, thanks everyone for joining us today. The feature that we're going to talk about here is something that we've had requests for probably pretty much forever with IndieCommerce, which is the ability for stores to add books to the system that are some kind of a variation on a book that may already be for sale. So we've looked at it from different angles for many years, and this is the way that we've started moving forward on it. By way of introduction, I would say this is what we would consider an alpha stage feature. It's pretty early in its release. We do have a handful of stores that are currently helping us, by being early adopters and trying out this feature, and we're ready to welcome a lot more of you to start doing that as well. But you may find some things about it that are a little rough, or a little that we need to kind of sand down the rough edges and improve the feature, and we certainly plan to do that as we go. So to start off with, we internally, at least, we've been calling this feature Store Books. And let's talk a bit about what we mean by that. So what is a store book? Well, when we say a store book, we mean a unique book that appears on only one, oops, sorry about that. There we go, that's better. It's a unique book that appears on only one store's website. So as you know, with your IndieCommerce site, out of the box, you get millions and millions and millions of books that are available in your search or on book lists or any other way. And those are available to everybody. Some of you may have also used the Add a Book feature on indiebound.org, which you can use to add books that are not in our system. Using that feature similarly adds a book to every single site. So a store book is a book that's only on one site as opposed to every site. It may be a unique version of an existing book. For example, it might be a used version. It might be a signed copy. It might be inscribed, but whatever it is, it's something that only one store carries. It could also be an old or rare book that doesn't appear on other sites. And here we get to the key features with the store book. It can have different pricing. So for example, if you have a used copy of the book, it may be less expensive than the new copy of the book. And it can have different inventory. So if you take a new hardcover release, Ingram will probably have hundreds or thousands of copies of it available. So even if your store sells through, it will always be available to ship from Ingram. But if you have a used copy of the book for sale at a lower price, you may only have one or two used copies, and when they sell, you don't want them to be available to be purchased anymore. So this feature allows you to have different inventory numbers for your store books as opposed to the print versions, the new versions. So here's a little visual to help clarify this a bit. We have the same book 3 times. One version is our new book, which is new from the publisher or wholesaler. It has a list price, which you can adjust with your pricing tools. But just for argument's sake, we'll say that it's being sold at the list price. Ingram has about 100 of it on hand, and they can get more if it sells through. And it's automatically on every site. Here in the middle column, we have a used copy. So it's got sorry for my terrible Photoshop skills, but it's got a little used sticker on it. Just use your imagination and pretend that looks better. And this used copy is only available from your store. So suppose it's being sold at a discount. It's being sold at a lower price since it's a used copy. Obviously, Ingram doesn't have it. It's unique. And you only have 2. And it's only on your site. And then on the right here, we have another example of a store book. So this is a signed copy, and it's sold at a higher price. Same thing, Ingram doesn't have it. You've only got 1 copy, and when it's gone, you want it to be gone. You don't want to continue to offer this product for sale. So once it sells out, you want it to be out of stock, and no one else will be able to buy it. So let's look at how store books are different from LSI. Many of you are probably familiar with LSI is an abbreviation we use, an acronym that's it's short for local store inventory. And that refers to comma separated file you can upload or have supplied through above the tree line for you that tells our system which books you have in stock and what the price is of those books. So how is this feature different? Well, there's a number of significant differences. The store books are a type of custom product. So they have their own product class and they work like custom products. They don't work as much like books on the site. Again, they appear only on one site. The local store inventory feed only takes 4 fields, the ISBN, the quantity, the price, and the section, and it's designed for those new books that are already available for sale on your site. And the store books can be taken off sale when the stock runs out, unlike new books, which would fall back to Ingram availability once you sell through them. So I know the name of this seminar said bulk upload in it, but I did also want to show that it is possible to add store books manually to your site. So this is a good way to sort of get started understanding the feature. And if you only have a small number of books to add or adjust, it can actually be a really handy way to do it. As I mentioned, they're a special type of custom product. So just like we can create any other custom product by hand on our site, we can create these store books by hand. There are many, many available fields, but we're going to focus on just 4 required fields. You only need 4 fields to create one of these things. You have to provide the title or the ISBN. And we'll look at some examples of that as we walk through it on my sample site here. The idea here is that if you provide an ISBN 13 and it's in the database already, all of the rest of the information about the book is going to be filled in for you automatically, and that includes the title. So if you have an ISBN and that ISBN is already in the system, you don't need to provide the title. It'll automatically fill it out. But if it's not in the system or you don't have an ISBN, for example, it might be a book that was created without one, or it might be a book that's so old it was before the ISBN system. Whatever the case, if there is no ISBN, you can still create it as a store book. You just need to provide the title in that case. We do require a condition for every store book. So this encompasses both, signed or unique copies as well as used. And the examples you see here, the conditions you see here, new, fine, very good, good, fair, and poor, these are standard conditions used for describing used books, and we do require you to choose one of those. You also have to provide a SKU. So this is your store's unique SKU for this book. And the only rule we have for it, it can be anything in the world, the only rule we have is that it cannot be the ISBN or any valid ISBN. You could take the ISBN and append an S for signed or a U for used, just so long as it's not an ISBN. And our system needs that so that it knows when somebody requests the product that they intend to purchase the used or the signed copy as opposed to the new version of the book. And finally, we do require that a sell price be provided. The system does not assume that a store book is for sale at the same price as the new copy. In fact, the assumption is the sell price will probably be different, so we do require you to supply a sale price. So let's look at how this feature works. I'm going to go ahead and create a couple of store books here by hand, and hopefully you'll get a sense of how it's pretty easy to do. So here I am on my sample site, and I'm looking at a new book. This title is currently on the IndieNext list. So I'm just going to copy the ISBN to my clipboard. And I'll go to Content and Add Content, and then Store Book. And this takes me to the form I would fill out when I add a new piece of content to the site. So this form is pretty long, and it can be, it's got quite a number of fields. But as I mentioned a few minutes ago, there's only a couple of them that are actually required. This ISBN field or title is required. So since I'm providing a different version of a new book, I can just paste that ISBN in here. And I want to show you, this is somewhat new on the IndieCommerce system. I think this is the only piece of content that does this. There are actually two tabs here. So these tabs allow you to toggle back and forth between what we call the standard book data and the store book data. So we're going to look at this in depth in another slide coming up, but the standard book data, by that we mean the book data that comes from the publisher and or that comes from Ingram in the system. So these are the fields that you shouldn't need to fill out unless you're providing a book that's not in the system currently. The store book data is the data that is unique to your store and unique to your copy of this book. So the store book data includes things like the condition, the dust jacket, whether it's signed, and we also have a field here where you can provide a store description, which is a unique description of your copy of the book, different from the one that the publisher may have provided. So I'm going to just continue with this and we'll see how this all ties together. So under the standard book data here, I've pasted in the ISBN number that I'm working with. And under the store book data, I need to choose the condition. So we're going to create a signed version of this book. Let's suppose we recently had the author here and he left a number of signed copies. So I'm going to say that this is a new condition. And that's all the information I need to provide here. I do need to provide a SKU. And as I said, we cannot use the ISBN, but we can use the ISBN plus, any number of extra characters. So I'm just going to call this book by its ISBN and then append an S for signed. And we need a sale price. So let's just say it's $20. So when I click save, this is going to reach out to our book data system, and it's going to import all of the data about the book. So that includes, it's going to pull the cover image. It's going to pull the author data, it got the title, as well as the publication date, the publisher, and the original description that was provided by the publisher. So all of these fields are filled in. We don't have to go through the trouble of adding all this stuff ourselves. I did forget to do something. I mentioned this was a signed copy, and I forgot to check the signed copy field. So I'm going to do that because I meant to show you that when you do that, the system will automatically append signed copy for you. That can help make clear to customers what's different about this copy of the book. So if they might happen to be looking at a list or a search result where both the new copy and the signed copy appear, this will help make clear what the difference is between them. Now, just because all of these fields were imported automatically, it doesn't mean I can't change them. So if I wanted to make any of the values of these fields different for whatever reason from what the publisher provides, I can do that and it will keep my changes instead of the ones from the book data system. So if I wanted to add, limited edition or something to the title here, I can do that. And when I save, it's going to remember my changes and it's not going to try to overwrite it with the original book data. So the goal here is to give you a lot of flexibility in how you format and display your used and signed copies. So similarly now, I can also create a used copy of this book. So I'll create another store book. Again, I only need to provide the ISBN. And to specify that this is a used copy, the only thing I have to do is select a condition other than new. So let's say that it came in from a customer and the pages are a little bit dog-eared. Maybe we'll say it's only in good condition. Then we would provide the SKU again, and this time I need to provide a unique SKU, so I'm going to append a U, just the letter U, to the ISBN. We'll make this one $15 and save. And now we have two copies of this book. One is signed and one is used, and they're at different price points from the new copy. I'd like to show as well what happens if you try to add a book that's not in the system. So if you go to Add Content and Store Book, and I happen to have conveniently copied a ISBN number to my clipboard that I know is not in our system. So if I add this ISBN, and I'm just going to say that it's in very good condition, and I'll add the SKU and the price. When I click Save, here's what it's going to do. Oh, this book exists. All right, sorry about that. I have a lot of ISBNs in my clipboard, don't I? Let's try this one more time, forgive me. You can edit this out of the online recording, please, thank you. Just kidding. All right, this ISBN doesn't exist, I'm sure it doesn't. There's no way, it couldn't possibly. There we go. Here's what the system will do in this instance. Rather than throw an error and cause you to lose anything that you might have entered, what it will do instead is it will title the book unknown book, because as I mentioned, title is required, but it can't fill it in because it doesn't know what it is. It will show you an error message just to let you know that this book has been marked unknown, and it will go ahead and create it together with whatever information you submitted. You can then go in and edit this and change it to show the correct information. So I don't even know what that is. I'm going to Google this book. The Last Book in the Universe. So I could go through here and, paste in all of this info, fill out the primary author, the other authors, the binding, and save. So if the system can't, the system would always like to help you by filling in everything it can find. But if it can't find it, you do still get the opportunity to offer the book for sale. You just have to do a little extra digging and finish it off like a regular custom product. One final note. I mentioned earlier how the system will automatically append this used book or signed copy to a title. That behavior is configurable. So you can go to the store, configuration, account information and preferences, and then book settings. And this is a page where you can configure a number of different settings. But specifically down here at the bottom, you can change what it says for used and signed books. So if your store, you have a different term that you like to use for your books besides signed copy, you can change this text. Or if you don't want this behavior, you don't want it to show used copy or signed copy at all, maybe you're going to do it manually when you edit your titles, you can just leave this blank. And if you leave it blank, it will stop appending this text. So again, the goal is to try to give you the flexibility you need to use the feature how you need to use it. Okay. So that's the manual entry. Let's talk a little bit more about the details of how this feature works. As I mentioned, store books are a type of custom product. So what that means in Drupalese is that they're a content type on your site. So you get a new content type with this feature called store book. They're just a normal custom product class, except that they have a large number of fields and some special powers like the ability to import the existing data. Cool thing to know, you can extend them by adding your own fields. So If there's an important piece of information about your store books that isn't accounted for here in these fields that we provided, you can add more fields on and use them however you like. As I mentioned, you can override the content of any field that we import for you, and that value, the one you provide, will stick. I would ask, if you experiment with this feature, don't remove the default fields that come with the module. If you don't want to use them, you can hide them or just not upload them, but many of them are required for this feature to work and for future enhancements to the feature, which I'll talk about a bit at the end. These fields are going to be important as well. You can, however, hide and rearrange these fields by modifying the display for the content type. So I'll show you what that means real quickly. If you haven't ever messed with the display options for your content types, I know we have help documentation on that as well, and it's something really handy to do. So you can simply go to Structure, Content Types, Store Book. Gotta have good trackpad skills. And then you would click on this Manage Display, and this shows you all of the fields and the order in which these fields are going to print out. You can also hide any of them. Let's say that we didn't want to show, the description for some reason. I can hide this field by dragging it down under Hidden. I can also rearrange the order in which they appear. If I wanted to move the Add to Cart form up to the top, I can do that. Many of the fields also have options where you can change how they look or whether a label appears for the author or not, and where it appears. There's a lot of really cool options here. We also did something new for this. We used what's called a field group to group the about this copy information. Just to remind you what that looks like, I'll pull up one of these again that I created. So we created this about this copy field set. And to do that, I just created a new field group and told it to display as a field set and dragged a bunch of unique fields underneath it. So this is default. When we turn on the Storebook feature for you, all this will be set up the same as it is here on my demo site. But I just wanted to show you in a little more detail how this was done. Okay, let's dive into the standard Storebook fields. As I mentioned, the standard Storebook fields, that's what we call the fields that the publisher provides. So this is the basic book metadata that would basically apply to any version of this book. Obviously, every book has a title. ISBN is required if the book has an ISBN and if you want it to pull in that info from its new edition. Like I said earlier, many used and rare books might predate ISBNs, or they might have some other reason why they don't have one. So you can use this feature to add those too. There's a primary author field, as well as an other authors field for additional authors. There's a binding type field, and this field has restricted values. We support a pretty large number of different bindings, but for consistency, especially as we're going to try to build on this feature and maybe even add ways for you to export and share this data later, it's important to have the binding type used consistently. So for example, the reason we have a standard list of binding types is so that we don't get paperback and trade paperback, for instance, so that there's only one way of saying paperback. And there's help documentation, which is up on bookweb.org that I'll refer to at the end of this webinar, that lists all of the available binding types. It's just a little long to put it in this presentation here. There's a field for the publisher, so publisher of the book. There's a publication date field. The book description, which, as I mentioned, is the publisher's description of the book, not your description. And finally, there's a cover image. And we're going to look at the bulk upload here together shortly. The cover image in the bulk uploader would be provided as a URL to the image somewhere else on the web. This is similar to how the bulk uploader works for custom products. Store-specific storybook fields. These are the ones that are unique to your copy of this book. We've talked quite a bit about the condition field already. There's also a dust jacket condition field, important for hardcovers and rare books that have a dust jacket. Then we have some basic yes/no fields for signed copy. Inscribed, meaning did the author write anything additional in the book besides signing it. Ex-library, and advanced reading copy. And the reason we have these extra fields in part is because we, in building this feature, we looked at a number of online marketplaces for reselling used books, third-party marketplaces, and we looked at what some of the standard fields that those marketplaces require in bulk uploads there. So, we looked at sites like Alibris and AbeBooks and other places like that, and we looked at, if you're going to upload your used inventory to those marketplaces, what are their standard fields? So that's why some of these fields are here. They may or may not be relevant to your store. You may not sell anything ex-library or advanced reading copies or things like that. But that's why we provided them, as in case they're needed for some of these third-party things later. I talked about this automatically appending used and signed copy already, but I made up a pretty slide about it. Okay, now we move on to the real centerpiece of the presentation, which is how to bulk upload your store books. The ability to create them manually is cool, and if you have a small number of them, or maybe you just want to use this feature to promote a subset of your signed inventory, that might be enough for you. But many stores that we've talked to who have used and collectible inventory have a lot of it, way more than anyone would want to punch through an entry form, even if it is as simple as pasting the ISBN in some cases. So we have integrated this with the existing custom product bulk upload feature to try to make it as easy and fast as possible to get a large amount of used or signed inventory up onto your site. So some of this is maybe familiar to you if any of you attended the custom products bulk upload webinar or have reviewed that documentation. I'm going to give a thumbnail sketch of it now. We have a lot more info on this up on BookWeb, and I did a webinar on this previously, which is available to view there as well. So the basics are, there are 4 steps to get your custom product inventory uploaded to the site. You would prepare a spreadsheet file. You would upload that file through the site. The site will walk you through the process of validating that file, making sure that the columns are in the right places, making sure that all the required fields are there, things like that. And finally, after you've had that chance to validate and review, there's a final step to publish all of that data live onto your site. The custom product feature works in terms of what we call staging tables. So staging tables are temporary tables that hold your product data while it's being processed and validated. So you're going to upload it from a spreadsheet into a staging table, and the staging table is really just like an online representation of that spreadsheet. Each product class has 3 staging tables. We'll talk about the details of that in just a minute. And each staging table has what's called a schema that reflects the details of the product class, such as any fields that might be attached to it, any attributes or options, etc. And if and when a product class changes, for example, if you add or remove a field to that product class, you may need to rebuild the staging tables. They will let you know when you go to upload something if they think their schema might be out of date. Again, for the store books feature, we'll turn it on for you, and if you don't customize it, you may not have to rebuild it. But if you add another field to the store book product class, you would need to rebuild the staging table then. So as we mentioned, there are 3 staging tables. There's the field table, which is the one we're really going to focus on here today. And that table defines the basic properties of each product. That includes things like the title, the description, the SKU, the basic sell price. It also includes any custom fields you added. So for our purposes with store books, pretty much every bit of information about that book is going to go through this field table. We also have a table for attributes, and this is for attributes and options. For example, small, medium, large, sizes, or different colors for a product. These are common uses of attributes and options. By default, we don't use this for store books. You may choose to add attributes to them, but the base version of them doesn't include it, so we don't actually need to worry about that table today. And the third table is the stock table. So this allows you to provide information about the quantities on hand for each product you have. Again, only the field table is necessary to get a product listed for sale on the site. Okay, so talk a bit about validation here. When you bulk upload your file and you go through the validation process, at that point, that's when we're going to check every ISBN that you supply. And any ISBNs you supply that match, we're going to automatically fill in the information then. So you'll have a chance to verify the information we filled in for you before you push it live on your site. Any ISBNs that do not match will be provided as an exceptions report that you can download and fill in the missing details. So the expected use of this feature is that you would probably make a first pass with a file that had more limited data in it. So for example, you might be able to supply as little as the ISBN, the price, the condition, just the very basic fields. And, maybe you supply 2,000 ISBNs and the system finds matches for, 1,800 of them. So you could proceed to create those 1,800 products on the site, and you can then download a report with the 200 that did not match. And that report will be in a format that you could fill in the rest of the data for those and re-upload it if you choose. So the idea here is that you would probably do this in a couple of phases. The first phase would try to just pull in as much information for you as possible. And then for those books that are not known to our system, you could go back and supply additional information that's necessary. However, you can also supply as much data as you please for all of your titles. If you do upload a full file of 2,000 titles and you supply title and author and publisher and publication date and all that stuff for all of them, we will use your data instead of what is in our system. So if your title is a little different from how we have it, we'll use that. If the way you have the publisher's name is a little different, we'll use your version of the publisher's name if you upload it. So it's up to you and how you can most easily get this spreadsheet together. We've had stores who uploaded, a large spreadsheet of titles, and they provided some information like the title and the title and the author, and then they left other information out like the cover image and the publication date. And for those books where we could find it, our system automatically added it for them. And for those books where we didn't have it, they could go back and edit it, or they could just have titles up there that didn't have as much information as some of the others. They can still be for sale even if they don't have a cover image or a pub date. You can still list it. For validation purposes, and we'll see what this looks like together here in just a minute, if you upload a file with more than 1,000 titles, it's fine, and we will process all of them. We've had stores who've done 10 or 20,000 titles at a time, I believe. But only the first 1,000 titles are shown as a preview. All right, so let's dig in and see what this looks like. So to start off with, if I want to bulk upload products, I would go to the store and then products, and then there's a link here that says import product status. So when I click that, that shows me all of the different product classes that are available on my site. And each product class has these three tables: field, attribute, and stock. If you see that it says missing here for any of these schema tables, you can just use this build command. You just click this little arrow and it'll drop down. You can click build and it'll build the table. If it says up to date, that means that the table is up to date and ready to use. So for Storebook, mine's already set. When I click this little arrow, this field set's going to open and show me all the different things I can do with my Storebook's field table. So I can view or upload more staged products. I can download a blank CSV template, and I can always download an export of all my existing products. So that can be a really nice feature as well. Once you've created all these products, you can use this feature to download an export of them, and that can be a quick way to make updates as well. You could just edit that file, make a few changes, and then re-upload to update a bunch of things at once. I'll show you what the template looks like. This may be the way that you would start working with the feature. So I'm just going to click this download blank CSV template link, and that's going to give me a file download. And all that this is a very simple spreadsheet document with headers for, I'll add a few rows here so it looks a bit more like a spreadsheet. And the headers correspond to each of the fields that we talked about earlier. So there's the SKU, title, sell price. These are all the fields like binding type, condition. Again, the documentation on BookWeb will walk you through what each of these headers corresponds to and which ones you need to fill out. So one possible way to get started here is to download this template file and start figuring out how you merge it with your existing data. You could also take an existing file that you have and just change the headers to match these. The system tries to be as flexible as possible. There's only a few fields that are required, as I mentioned earlier, and you can omit the other ones if you don't want to upload them or supply them at this time. So you don't have to use this template. You could take a spreadsheet that you have that maybe has a somewhat different format than this and just change the headers so that they look like these. So if your sell price was called, sale price or something instead of sell underscore price, you could just edit that column so that it's called sell underscore price and use the file that way. The columns do not have to be in any particular order either. So the only thing that really matters is that you have all the required fields, which are spelled out in the documentation, and that your headers look like these. So if your headers, say this, you'll be able to import your file into the system. So if the template's helpful to you, use it. If not, feel free to go about it another way. So I'm just going to delete this guy. I don't need to keep it right now. I have prepared a couple of sample files here for upload. Let's look at one of them here. So like I said, you can use this for thousands of ISBNs, but in order to keep things simple and moving quickly, we're just going to do a file with 4 to start. So here you can see I've used the template and I've filled it in with some values, and I've left a lot of columns blank. I'm planning on having those columns filled in for me by the system, and we're going to just give this thing a try and see how it works. So what I have provided are unique SKUs for each product, different sell prices. This one here is to say that the product is published. This is just like any piece of content on the site. You do have to specify whether it's published or unpublished. I am providing a condition field for each of these. And then I did find and provide the original ISBN 13 for each product. And I only have one other field here filled out. Just one of these copies I've marked that it's signed. So I put a 1 here, meaning signed is on. So let's go in and upload this file. I'm going to go to Storebook, content type, and just click on View Staged Products here. And this takes me to a field with some basic information, which fields are required. These fields are automatically filled in. All I need to do is choose my file. and click Upload. So once this finishes, it will confirm for me that it successfully read 4 lines. It'll say 4 products imported. That just means into the staging table, not officially live on the site yet. It'll also say that there are 4 staged products that have not been validated yet. So if we look down at the bottom of the page, this is where we can see the staging table. And here we can see the same information that I had in the spreadsheet. So the system is just at this point confirming that it has, it was successfully able to read all 4 of these lines in my spreadsheet. The cool stuff is going to happen after I click validate. So this kicks off another workflow, and you see it's really fast because I've only got 4 products, but there is a little progress bar. And if you have, say, 10,000 products, you'll get to watch a little progress bar. I'm sure we all love those. You'll get to watch a little progress bar go from 0 to 100% while it goes through and looks up each book. Again, if you only have a handful of books, it's quick like this. So we get some feedback right away. The good news is that we have 3 staged products that are ready to be imported. So that means that the validator went through and everything was cool. And as far as it's concerned, we can go ahead and create those on our site. Then there was 1 product that had an error, and it says we can review the status column, which is a column on that table below, and that'll identify which products had errors and what, if anything, was wrong with them. So now that if I scroll down, you'll see that this table is much, much longer, and we can see that it's pulled in a bunch of information about each book, including the description, which is rather long. So what we really want to look at here is the columns on the very far right. There's one called status and one called messages. So the status column, anything that says ready new, that means it's ready to import, and when we do import it, it will create a new product. There's another status which you may see that says ready update. And if you see that, that means that it's ready to import, but it knows that it's an update to an existing product on your site. In this case, these 3 books that passed, those are all new to the site. We don't currently have them listed. The 4th item down here says error. So this item is not going to be able to be imported at this time, but it will tell us what the problem was. So it says here that no match was found for this ISBN. So this is how we will know I uploaded 4 lines, and 3 of the ISBNs had a match in our catalog, so it filled in their data, and the 4th one didn't. So now I can go ahead and import those 3 products. So I'll click Import Ready Products. That starts another little progress bar going, and those 3 products have been imported, and they're now gone from our table. Our 4th product, the one with an error, is going to stick around. So it offers us a link that says Export Errors, and when I click that link, it's going to take everything that had an error in this table and batch it up into a file, which I can then download using this link. So this gives me a new spreadsheet, which I can open, and it contains all of the same information that was in the sheet I uploaded, plus information about what was wrong. So basically, what I would need to do if I wanted to get this product up on the site is I would need to fill in as many of these columns as I can, and then re-upload this file. Again, with 1 title, this isn't too hard, but if you had a couple hundred that were, maybe they were published before, the year 2000, or a lot of our system doesn't have older books than that. So you could download those titles, correct them, and re-upload. Now, to save time, I've already got a version of this that I went through and filled in the fields for. So here's my last book in the universe. And in this case, I just went through and I filled in as much as I could what I could find out about the book. And finally, to add the image, there's a field on the end called UC product image. And if I want to supply a cover image for the book, the way I would do that is I would find a picture of it online. Just use Google image search or any other way of finding it, and just copy that URL. So when I upload this file, the system is going to follow this URL and grab that image and download it. So I'm going to just attach this file, click upload. And now we've got this product staged. So just like we did before, we'll validate it. And this time it passed. So it says there's one product that's ready to be imported. And the status here is ready update. And it's ready update because I created this earlier, in fact, as an unknown book. So it recognizes it because it has the same SKU as the product that I was creating earlier when we were testing out the manual store book creation together. So I'll click import ready products, and it's going to process this. And we should be done. So now if I go to my admin content screen, I should see that I have a number of new store books. These are the ones I just uploaded, and my last book in the universe is going to have some more information. So these three were all in the system already at different price points, and it was able to pull that information and use it to fill these out. The fourth one, I provided my own information, including the cover image and author and book description, and now I've got this all set as well. We'll take a quick look at how to handle stock for these. A common challenge with used inventory, of course, is stock. When you sell through it, you may not be able to get it right back again, so it's important to keep that under control. One easy way to provide stock, you can just download a CSV export of the stock file. Notice I'm under the stock import column this time. And this will give us a file that we can go and fill in ourselves with the stock numbers. So this provides all of the store books that are in our system, along with their SKUs that we created for them. And we just have to fill this file in. If we want to use the stock feature, we would put a 1 in the stock active, and then we could put stock numbers for each. 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 1, 2. And it's important to save these files as a CSV. So I'll make sure I do that. So we can upload this file just like the others. It looks a lot simpler in the staging table. These are all ready to go. And now we'll import them. So now each of these products that I uploaded has its own stock information. And we can see that here, where it shows the on-hand number, as well as if I edit it and then go to the stock tab. So basically this file is the equivalent of this. The active checkbox is the stock active column, and then the stock numbers are here. So you can use this upload, or you can use this screen to edit to change a book stock. So if this is a feature that is interesting to you and you'd like to give it a shot, first just ask us, let our staff know. Like any feature on your site, we'll have to turn it on for you. It's also a good time to review your inventory. And export it and think about how you're going to prepare this file. Then use the template provided. we recommend that you test a couple of books first before you load the full file. So if you have, 10,000 lines, it's probably a good idea to start with a file that's, 5 to 10, to get a feel for how the system's going to handle it. Probably the one thing that you would want to be most careful about, you're not going to be able to damage or hurt your site significantly, but if you process a file and create a large amount of bad data, it could take a long time to clean it up. So that's why I would say start small. Try a small number of titles, get a feel for the system, get a feel for how everything works, and once you feel comfortable, you can move up to more and more titles at a time. Again, as I mentioned, this is an alpha stage feature. We've only got a few users of this currently, so we welcome any issue reports, and we'll work to get them fixed. The store books do appear in search, but at the moment they look more like custom products and less like print books. We certainly plan to improve that in the future. One of the biggest drawbacks to this currently, these books don't yet appear as related editions of print books. So our roadmap for this feature, improving it in the future, is going to focus on that integration. So we're going to try to improve the relationships between the new versions of books and these store books, so that, for example, the store books would appear as related editions, and try to give you some other ways to show someone if you have a used copy or a signed copy, to feature that along with the new book, and vice versa. We also know, we've heard from stores who use the custom product bulk upload that the stock upload feature is nice, but it would be super convenient if the LSI feature that many stores already use could do that for them. So in other words, stores have said, can't I just send you these SKUs in my LSI, and if the SKU in my LSI matches the SKU on the site, can you just use that quantity? At present, we're not able to do that because they're two separate parts of the system, but we know that that's going to be critical to this feature being successful. So we definitely have it in mind to add that enhancement in the future. So for now, if you adopt this feature and start using it, you'll need to use the bulk import tools to update your stock. You can also edit books by hand. But going forward, we definitely have it in the plans to get this integrated with LSI so that you could upload your LSI file and take care of your inventory for all of your products at once. Finally, as I alluded to a couple of times, we're also looking at the possibility of providing exports to third-party marketplaces. So, we know that some stores, stores that sell used books may not only list them on their site, they might list them on other, marketplaces for people who sell used books. So since the data is here, we'd be looking at ways to get it out and share it with other systems if that's something you want to do. So that's one of the main reasons why we created this feature, to standardize the kind of used book data that we're getting, is to make it easier to give you the opportunity to export it and share it with other partners.
Matt, we have a couple of questions.
All right.
So the first question is, so if we want these store books to show up as purchasable, we need to create a page and list them by SKU. Is that right? They are not going to show up automatically just because we have created the store book.
No, they will. It would be like creating any kind of custom product.
Yeah, Carol, it'll be like any other custom product, as Matt said. Once you create it, you publish it, it's going to show up. And it also shows up on search, right, Matt?
Yes, it will show up in search.
Okay. And I know your test site did not, Matt, your test site did not have the wish list enabled, I think. So if the wish list is enabled, these can also be added to a wish list, right?
Correct. They function like a custom product for all intents and purposes.
Okay. The next question is, can we use this to pre-sell signed books before an author event as well?
You could. You could use this to create anything that is a unique version of a print book. So we really wanted to make this feature as flexible as possible so that it wouldn't be limited to, just stores that sell used inventory or just stores that sell signed copies later or something. So yeah, I definitely imagine that you could. It's not uncommon for IndieCommerce stores to create a custom product class that's something like event ticket and then sell that. So you certainly could use this in a way to create something that's like an event ticket, but automatically pulls in a bunch of information about the print version of the book. It would also help you because it would allow you to set different pricing. So if your event ticket is, maybe it includes the book, but maybe it also includes some other stuff, or the price of the ticket's not the same as the list price of the book, you could provide different pricing. And you could also use the stock feature to have limited inventory of it. So yeah, I hadn't really thought about it that way, but you certainly could make this useful for that.
And I think some stores, they prefer customers to pick up the books at the location of the event and not have it shipped ahead of time. So in this case, if they mark the book, the signed copy as non-shippable, and when a customer adds it to the cart, I guess the customer will not be prompted to put in a shipping address. Regarding the formats, I know you talked about the various formats that they can choose for like a hardcover or paperback. Are these in any way related to the formats for the regular 978 ISBN books?
Yes, it's basically the list of formats here is essentially the same as the list of formats available there. So if you look at, say, the advanced search, it's going to be the same list of formats, and that's part of the purpose, is that as we continue to enhance this feature, that's going to help us make connections between the used copies and their new counterparts. So it's basically the same list.
Okay. And if a store has a coupon for hardcover books, would that coupon apply for the store books that are marked as hardcover?
How does that work, Etha? Do we have a UC coupon extension by format?
Yes, and we just pull the BISAC category of the book.
You mean the binding type?
Yeah, the binding type. Sorry, the binding type.
Okay.
The binding type for the book, for a regular book.
That is a very good question. I'll have to test that and see what would happen. My gut feeling is that it would not recognize this as the same thing, but it should certainly be possible for us to do that. So we'll just have to look at how that coupon feature identifies the print book as a hardcover, for instance, and make it apply to these. However, I would turn the question back around and ask whether that's necessarily an expected behavior. If it's a used copy and a store has a coupon policy for hardcovers, I don't know. Some stores may want it to apply to other hardcovers, but others, I'm thinking, may consider used to be a different category.
Yeah, that's true.
So we may need to provide flexibility to do both.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yep. Okay, I think that's all we have for questions. I know that. Thank you, Matt. I know it was a great presentation, but a lot of information. And my guess is our attendees need time to go over the document and digest what they have learned today. So anybody who, if you want to try this feature, as Matt mentioned, please write to us, write to staff at BookWeb, and let us know that you're interested, and we can enable the modules for you. And you will receive a follow-up email. It'll have instructions. It'll have a link to all the slides from today's presentation. It'll have a link to the help doc and also a recording of today's webinar. I think there is one more question. Let me. Oh, it is just Stacy saying thank you. You're welcome, Stacy.
Thank you.
Yes, that's it. Thank you, everyone, for your time. And thank you, Matt, and on behalf of the entire IndieCommerce team. Thank you, and hope you have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thanks, everybody.